the rhythm, catching every beat. Together we embrace the futures at our feet. The futures at our feet.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Edufuturists podcast. It is a wonderful week, a wonderful day, and I'm sure it's a wonderful day when you are listening, whether that is when it is released or some point in the future, near future hopefully, so it affects our stats positively. But if you're coming back to it a few years later and we're now flying cars, then great that you're still listening.
You've become a flying. Are you saying you've become a flying car, or that we have
I
flying
could be a
cars?
flying car in a reincarnation. You know,
Yeah.
AI's taking over the world and all that. So
You're
you never
Lightning
know, Ben.
McQueen, I reckon.
Absolutely am. Or am I that old rusty thing that basically
I
just
don't know what that one's called. I'm just pretending to be
Rusty,
kicked out
maybe.
with the kids.
Rusty
maybe.
Or is it
Rusty
oily?
McDusty.
Spits a lot out.
Later.
Mate, oh my God, we've got a Disney fan. I'm a Rascal Flatts fan, so picking cars, Ben, is absolutely unbelievable. It is the theme tune of that. This is what happens when you get me to start the podcast. We're going to dive in a second and start talking about the future of education and all that kind of thing. But we're really excited to have Leonie on. Leonie, you'll introduce yourself. But Ben, I'd ask you how you are, but I don't really care. Just maybe in one word,
Not you.
quick-fire question.
You said that really fast.
Ben.
You said you
Ben.
care what Leonie is. You don't care what I think. Yeah.
Don't leave just yet, Leonie. Stay with us, otherwise me and Ben have got to do half an hour. Ben, free quick fire. How are you doing? What have you had for breakfast?
Eggs.
What did you have? Did you have bread?
No bread.
Good, Matt. Okay, so Leonie, we've covered everything that we need to. Me and Ben have caught up and everything else. Do you want to do a bit of an introduction to yourself, Leonie, and then we'll go from there?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I owe the Cars facts 100% to my little boy Lucas, who is 8. Lightning McQueen is his absolute favourite character, and the number 95 is his favourite. So full credit to my little mini Amaze Lab member for those Cars facts there. So I'm Leonie Briggs. I am director of a company called Amaze Lab. So at Amaze Lab, we do all things STEAM. So science, technology, engineering, the arts and maths, and we are an educational resource provider. So that basically means that we work with schools, we work with industry partners, and we aim to create really creative and engaging activities for young people to complete, to try and inspire them into a career in STEM and STEAM.
So that's where you are now. That's not where you always were. Tell us a little bit about how you got into Amaze Lab and your journey to that.
How long have you got? So I come from STEM industry originally myself. So my first love was veterinary practice. I used to work in veterinary practice, so general practice, then orthopaedic, referral, hospital. I then honestly used to swim dogs for a living. I used to do rehabilitation. I then went on to Quality Assure, the Veterinary Nursing Award. And then when I had my daughter, I decided it was time to retrain and become a teacher, because I think I'd always secretly wanted to work in education. So I then did my PGCE, and I've been lucky enough to work in primary, secondary, post-16 and alternative provision. It was during lockdown, it was back in 2020, when I completely destroyed my dining room table at home in Barnsley, South Yorkshire, doing science experiments, because I was so passionate about young people not missing out on practical skills. But I wanted them to be safe. I didn't want to be any barriers to learning. So we completely raided the kitchen, the garage, anything we could get our hands on to perform simple, safe, but effective science experiments. That's where my husband came in, because my husband is a graphic designer. So we realised that actually got something quite unique in-house that I could write and deliver the workshops, and David could help create the videos, the PowerPoints, the activity packs, the fact sheets. And we'd not actually realised that before, so it kind of all blended together. And then we started getting approached to create more resources for other people. Can you work with our community group? Will you Zoom into our school? And I'll be honest, it all just snowballed and came from there. So we're 5 this year. We're actually 5 on Monday, which is the 21st of July, which is very, very exciting. So yeah, it was quite a organic journey, and to be honest, something that I'd not planned, but I can really, really enjoy doing it, and I'm very pleased with where we are today.
We are going to dive into the book, but what I'm really interested in is I see on social media all the time, dads that put me to shame when I try and be creative, and it's a box that pretty much looks like a box with a drawing on it. And you see these dads that have built a go-kart out of cardboard, and it moves, and we managed to get up to 70 mile an hour today. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, and also that Jamie Oliver thing of, you can cook this at home if you've got all of these ingredients. So maybe before we step into the book, in terms of all that work and STEM at home and all of those creative activities, is this something that is more Jamie Oliver cookbook, where you have to go out and maybe get some ingredients that aren't at home? Or actually, are we saying, Leonie, you know what, try it with anything that you've got? Even if you're Stephen, you can make a box look like a box. Give it a go.
Definitely. So yeah, I'm really passionate about breaking down any barriers to learning. Nothing has to be completely prescriptive either. I think that's the joy of being a scientist, being an engineer. You know, you might ask a question and then we try to solve it through, perseverance and resilience. And sometimes you never quite know what the outcome's going to be. I work on some amazing projects with schools. I've been in some, even like this week, I've been on a tour with our Sparkbox project and Big Bang in schools and STEM Unity. And the absolute joy in that project was that, all this equipment is in a box. We'd suggested how they could do it, but really we were allowing these young people the freedom of being creative. And the feedback, when I had one amazing young woman say to me, "Miss, I cannot believe what I've just made from some cardboard and a balloon." It was absolutely amazing. And that's what we're trying to encourage, that real creativity in learning, because when you work, within a science environment, it is a lot of collaboration, it is a lot of teamwork, it is a lot of asking questions. And sometimes those answers are quite unexpected. So no, it is about, what have you got? What can we do with these basic pieces of equipment? I think as well, even though now I'm a business owner, I will always think with my teacher hat on and my mum hat on as well, to what other people would want to do.
I totally hear that. Like, I am laughing at when Steve's saying he really wants to be that guy that does that, and I have as well. I just think what even this is about. Now, the good news is that my parents are both primary teachers, so that means that if we need a costume for something, my first place is to go, "Mum, have you got anything in the store at school that we can use?" So my girls are a bit older now; they're 11 and 14, nearly 15. So it's Martha's last show tonight, actually, the youngest, so in primary school. So that's the first place. And also, when it's World Book Day or it's whatever else, Mum's like, "I've got this. You don't worry, I'm all over it." So thankfully, they've got grandma and granddad that are in that space. But what you're saying there is that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about the idea of having the fun of the making of the process and the makey stuff that a lot of people have been big, haven't they, in those maker spaces in classrooms. It's about bringing that to life and turning that into an educational opportunity. That's what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that the creative things that you can do, how do we turn that into a learning opportunity? Is that the kind of stuff that you're doing with Amaze Lab?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we really see that when we go and run the workshops, the sheer joy of having that time and freedom to create, to slightly go away from the rules or what that method is. And I think that's where we see lots of the absolutely brilliant, ideas and fantastic learning. I've run projects where, the teachers have said, "This is the best day I've ever had." They've been building a sustainable city out of cardboard and working out how to power it with like origami wind turbines and things like that. So I think everybody appreciates having that time to get really creative and to let those juices flowing away and think, "Oh, great! Actually, I've just come up with a really good idea from perhaps the basics of what was written down, but I've developed it and I've made it even better."
Cool. So, I'll jump in now. Obviously, you are coming from that education piece always. So the stats are pretty cool. Like, you probably don't go, "Oh yeah, this is me," but you just getting this right. You won Outstanding New STEM Ambassador in 2022. You were nominated for the Global Teacher Prize, National Teaching Awards. You were top in the UK top 100 female entrepreneurs this year. Green Growth Awards finalists. your business has won Enterprise Awards 2023 and 2024, Startup Business of the Year 2022, and STEAM Education Platform of the Year 2025. So you've done, kudos, well done, congratulations in that space. But it's obviously that a lot of what you're trying to do is help bring. You can see your passion for it. It's very clear, and your passion for the background from a science perspective, from a veterinary science perspective, then into education, and then how do we make this accessible for young people? And so. And we'll put a link to this in the show notes. So we'll put a link to all the things that Leonie's doing. But we got sent a copy of Leonie's latest book, which is Make Your Own Rainbow. It says a colourful approach to all things STEAM. And basically, I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of an insight into why you wrote this book and what people can get if they do grab hold of this.
Well, again, I was very, very honoured when I was approached about writing that book. But it was one of those moments of one point of sheer excitement of, wow, I'm going to write a book. And then the next point of, oh my goodness, I now actually have to write a book. And it is incredibly difficult. The part where we got to write the experiments and take photos was absolutely amazing. That was so much fun. The bit where it keeps coming back with red on it, not so much fun. But very grateful to the publishers who helped with all of that. It was a real learning curve and experience. But when I've just seen you holding it, it's like, oh wow, that's my book. I wrote that, which is fantastic. So yeah, again, the idea of using a rainbow came during the pandemic. So I was actually approached to do quite a few live lessons to the nation. But again, if we were doing live lessons to the nation, it needed to be that everybody could join in and that we were using equipment and materials that people were likely to have in their home. So it ultimately stemmed from the Exploding Rainbows experiment that I'm proud to say 5 years later is still one of our most popular experiments. So it then grew that we were being approached to come up with ideas of experiments and projects that linked to really the signal of hope of the rainbow during the pandemic. So that's ultimately where the ideas from the book came from. And we were also trying to use colour to make learning really engaging. That it was something that people would be interested in and try and capture the imagination. So yeah, inside there's 40 activities. It is all curriculum linked from early years to secondary, but it's also suitable for people to use at home. You know, if somebody's looking for something to do during the summer holidays, or grandparents, you know, have got young children with them over the holidays, or down to, you know, amazing groups like Brownies, Scouts, Guides. There really is something for everybody inside that book, but it's all super safe, cost effective, you know, it looks good and exciting things happen, but it can be easily achieved. But if you want to expand your learning, there's loads of knowledge in there so you can delve deeper into the science behind it all.
Sorry about that. Just all my stuff just went off completely. So yeah, what I love about the book is ultimately, and apologies if you've just gone through the whole conversation, but actually the ability to take everyday life and everyday learning into an opportunity there. So like, you know, my son is obsessed with football, anything with a ball really, and very sporty. Probably gets it from dad, and that's fine. But ultimately, the ability to, I wouldn't know without the help of the book and guidance and support, how that can lead into science conversations and application and all those kind of things. So maybe give some anecdotes and some more examples of some bits like that, and actually what does that look like in real context? I think that's great, where it's not about creating something new. And when I talked originally about making stuff and making boxes, actually no, that's not what the book is about. It's about actually real life conversations that apply to situations of where you're at.
Yeah, and that's been the really amazing feedback from the teachers as well. I've had absolutely fantastic feedback from teachers who have said, we've worked with you, I've now got a copy of the book, and I absolutely adore the fact that I can just pick this book up, open it, and I can actually do it. I can actually apply it the next day. I can do it with a few students, or I can scale it up. I'll actually pick up on your point about football as well. We're just starting a project that I'm really excited about with a football club, using that hook of football, but obviously the science and the STEM and the STEAM behind that is absolutely fascinating. So we're writing projects with a local local football club, about sustainability, about materials, about recycling of kits, about the human, how the human body works, but all about training to be a footballer, and actually looking at all the careers that link to that football club. So I absolutely love finding, the STEM and the STEAM in everything, in all that we do. I really enjoy the challenge of that. So when I met with the team at the football club, and they said what learning they were trying to get across in schools and the community, it was really quite joyful to then get super excited and have those conversations about how we were going to link it all together. So yeah, really, really passionate about that, and trying to find these subjects that a young person might say, oh, do you know what? I'm not bothered about doing science. I don't want to go to a maths lesson. But when we can say, well, actually, you're going to meet a footballer and we're linking it to the groundsman, or the people who work at the football ground, we can hopefully then use that to really inspire them and think, oh, actually, I didn't realise how that all linked. These subjects now really are for me, and I might not even have thought about that career, but now actually I might look into how I can develop that. And oh, great, because I think sometimes, sadly, people are put off by these subjects, but I think if we make it that it's accessible, that there's something that somebody's enthusiastic about, and then how we can then explain how all these subjects linked, and without science, STEM subjects, that wouldn't exist. Or we wouldn't have a football pitch, we wouldn't have a football kit, the players won't be performing as well due to nutrition. It's like, oh yes, great. I absolutely love linking things to real world scenarios and making them really relevant, and I really enjoy working on projects that then have a career aspiration linked on that, or bringing in industry partners. So again, people can say, oh, I didn't realise that actually that job opportunity was 20 minutes away. I didn't even know that office was there, or that lab, or that warehouse. And go, oh, great, actually, this might be for me now. So I suppose ultimately, going back to the book, I'm hoping that even it just ignites that tiny little spark of, oh, quite enjoyed doing that. I wonder what I could do with that, or I wonder how I could further develop that experiment. That's what ultimately my aim is. And I suppose that's the young people and adults alike, even don't matter how old anybody is, they can come and have loads of fun doing the activities.
I think we kind of delved into it, didn't we, Jill, in terms of the bit of where you were talking about real life context. And actually, is that why you feel, not just about the book, but why STEM actually matters in school? Because ultimately, it's not just a standalone, separate subject that does this. It's ultimately an opportunity to really apply all of those into real world context and apply it into a great conversation.
Oh, I agree. To me, like, science is everything. I used to actually quite enjoy the challenge of that in the classroom. When you might be having a teenager who's been a little bit moody, saying, "Oh, Miss, what we're doing this for?" I was like, "Well, we're doing this for this, this, and this. This links to this." And I think because I'd come from an industry background as well, it was so nice to be able to share with people during my teaching. Well, when I worked in the vets, we actually did this every day. We did radiography. We had to do really big calculations about medicines, and also they had to be exactly right. You'd be working in the pharmacy, again, in terms of like the medications, things had to be spot on. We had to double check things. We had to completely understand. There was no point me working in orthopedics and taking some radiographs, some x-rays, and me not knowing which bone it was, or looking at which muscle connected, or anything like that. We did blood smears, we did wee samples, and I think that was really nice how I could share that context with people. Say, oh, Miss, what are we doing this for? Well, I used to do this every single day. Even from holding a microscope carefully like a little rabbit, as I used to be taught at university, because they were precious and expensive. So I really like things being relevant and people really seeing the meaning into that learning. And obviously every subject isn't going to be for everybody, and that's absolutely fine. I love the fact that people are completely unique, and I think the world would be a very boring place if not. But even if it's not the subject that's for them, just having that meaningful context to it as well, I think it makes you want to research and learn more around that topic as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Your learning grow, because even now, I was speaking to somebody and I thought, oh, I want to know more about that. I need to go away and research that. That sounds exciting. So you've got that constant daily inspiration of, oh, that's exciting. I'm going to go and learn more about that.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think something I'll bring up about play in a moment, because I know that I want to talk about like play in learning. But just to kind of follow on from what Steve was saying there about the importance of STEAM, I think it's worth just maybe just poking at something a little bit, if this is okay, because obviously it was STEM, and then all of a sudden they put the A in. I'm actually working with somebody whose title is Director of Stream, and they've added reading in to this, and I'm thinking to myself, is this not like everything except for the things that I used to teach and Steve used to teach? So Steve taught PE and I taught RE, and it's like, well, they don't really matter, because as long as it's we've now got all the arts in there, we've got engineering, we've got science, we've got technology, we've got maths. Like, why does it need to be on its own? It would be my question, and why have we expanded it to STEAM?
I really like the curriculum linking, and again, we do this a lot with school projects. We worked on an amazing sustainability project with an industry partner, but actually the school asked us to link it to their geography curriculum and to the science curriculum. I have a lot of linking to literacy as well, where they'll use the writing up of the experiment, and they'll actually use some of that as a literacy project. So I'm a big fan of, subjects don't need to be standalone. I really like it when everything links in together. I think as well, I'm from Sheffield originally. I live in Barnsley now, but obviously I feel like I'm built on STEM and STEAM. I'm from the City of Steel. My absolute hero is Helen Sharman, who was the first ever British astronaut. But how amazing that she was a woman from Sheffield. You'll see the similarities between myself and Helen. Helen was a chemist from Sheffield. Chemistry is my specialism. She really inspired me. I still remember being in a porter cabin classroom and Helen blasting off to the space station. So I think I've always been surrounded by these subjects. Obviously, I'm from a very musical place as well, with the arts, with theatre, with pop groups. I live in a very creative household. The other half of Amaze Lab is a graphic designer. So I think I've always seen the power of the arts. Again, I'm working on another brilliant project with secondary schools and Barnsley Civic, and we're actually looking at behind the scenes of the theatre, and we're developing a co-created workshop with young people in year 10 and the theatre, and we're working with their technical crew, but we're looking at all aspects of the theatre. So I think there's so many possibilities of linking subjects and again making them really relevant, and that is something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I definitely hear that, and I think that ties into something that I wanted to bring up. We had Sophie Pickles on episode. I look back early, episode 277, which was. And she talked about the importance of play. She's come from an early years background, and she was talking about how obviously in the UK in early years that there's continuous provision and there's no like fixed curriculum, but we have these touch points to make sure that there's flow and there's progress, and it's not that there's no measures, but it's flowed and progress through continuous provision. There's a petition to move to Key Stage 1 in the UK being more continuous provision rather than strict curricula, and I'm a big fan of this, like a super big fan of this, and because we all learn by, well, not all of us, but lots of us learn by play. I was talking to somebody recently about my daughters learning to play piano. They learned to play piano, and when it became drill, they decided I don't want to do this anymore. But when they started being able to play things, that was what got them that excitement of whatnot. Not the passing of an exam, not the I can now do the minor scales, or I know what a sus4 is. Like, that's cool, but that's not the be all and end all. And I know there's drill, and I know there's layers, and I know there's foundations, and I'm constructivism, I understand it, but the principle really is about play and enjoying doing what we're doing. And I think this is what I'm seeing from the book, from the stuff that you're doing as an organisation, the things that you're passionate about there. It's about that. So my question really, because I picked up, and I might be wrong, but I've picked up that you're obviously in not just in primary, you've worked in a secondary space. So making that fun play STEM stuff and STEAM stuff, not just about the littlies. How could, like, if somebody's listening to this and they might not be a science teacher, they might not be a technology teacher, but how do they bring that play element? What would your advice be there?
Well, my classroom used to look like Hogwarts in secondary. I was a bit of the odd one out, really. No, I'm really lucky that I've worked in primary, secondary, and post 16. I do a lot of work now with the students at the University of Sheffield. We do lots of placements together and project writing together. Oh yeah, when I taught in secondary science, I used to have Avengers physics. I used to have Harry Potter chemistry, because again, it was finding those points of interest. Football was always popular. Space, hugely popular. So I would try and link my lessons to something that the amazing young people that I was working with had an interest in. And I was lucky that I had an absolutely fantastic head teacher who really encouraged that. So she says, this is what we need to make sure the young people are learning, but I do not mind how you teach it, as long as we get the outcomes that we require. So I would spend time, even studying X-Men and Magneto, linking that to teaching magnets. And again, I was incredibly lucky. I mean, looking back now, David, my husband, another half of Amaze Lab, did used to help me out then. We used to make me letters from like Stark Industries. So the young people would walk in and there'd be a letter from Tony Stark, like stuck on to the board. It was me, Mrs. Briggs. I can hear your class acting as particles from my office. Could we perhaps just make that a little bit quieter? Mrs. Briggs, you're playing the Christmas music far too loud. Mrs. Briggs, I think the Avengers music is just on a little bit too loud today, as we were doing a task where all the information was around the room and we were all going around being Avengers, but ultimately it linked to physics. But I used to really enjoy teaching in that manner. And I do enjoy working with people of all ages. And I think it is a bit of a misconception that some of the people are, they're too old for that. They're not. Teenagers still love doing that project. They love being creative. Like I mentioned about our Sparkbox project, where there's 5 activities and all the equipment's in a box, but it's really basic equipment that is aimed at pupils in year 8 and 9. And it's fantastic to see all their ideas come to life, because again, I was working on a transport project, Transport for the Future, and I was like, well, we need you guys. You will be inventing the transport of the future. I think when you work in education, it is such a privilege that you do not know who you've got sat in front of you. Like, it could be the person who goes on to change the world, and I think that is an absolute honour. And I cannot wait to see what everybody becomes. Eva, I think it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and obviously you've taught from a classroom setting, you've talked about from an educator point of view, but ultimately, Amaze Labs, maybe talk about the opportunities that are different ways that you can engage, from your workshops and your activity packs to the engagement with partnership and everything else. And I know you said about Sheffield and Barnsley and the libraries there. Maybe talk at that in regards to actually not just it being about a book that people read and do at home. Actually, there's a community that you're trying to build and connections through different mediums and different ways.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that there is an Amaze Lab workshop for everybody. So if you want to come along to an Amaze Lab workshop, we will make sure that happens. We work with a number of charities as well to make sure that all our workshops are accessible. So we write resources together. They come along to our workshops to check that they work for everybody. So I don't want anybody to be excluded, or if anybody needs anything, if they let us know, we will work on that or work with another industry expert to make sure that it is accessible. So if you've not had a workshop in school, or it might be that you weren't able to get to a workshop, we make sure that we run them in community centres. So we do things like the healthy holiday programmes, we work with museums, we work with libraries, and the majority of those workshops are fully funded as well. So there's absolutely no cost to come along, because they've kindly been funded by a programme such as Sheffield Healthy Holidays. So yeah, I do strongly believe that if you want to come along, we make sure that there is an opportunity that you can do.
Love it. I love it. And I think we'll put all the links to as I've said already, in the show notes, to all the things that Leonie's doing and the team there, but also to the book and to the things that we've been talking about. What we always do at the end of, or coming towards the end of, a Edufuturists podcast is we flow into some quickfire questions. And Steve said that what these have become are head scratchers. Some people were expecting a Pepsi or Coke, or who would win in a fight between Steve's favourite one, between a rat and a squirrel. That's his favourite thing. Who would win a fight between a rat and a squirrel? It'd be a good fight, I reckon. And then one of our guests said recently, who would win in a fight between Ben and Steve? And Steve reckons it'll be him, but because he's got long arms. I'm like, it depends. If we get to the ground game, there is no chance. He has got no chance. And also, he doesn't realise how fast I am for a fat lad. So anyway, we'll get to the actual quickfire questions that are about education, not about your preference for rats or squirrels.
Try.
So I'll ask the first one, then Steve will ask one, then I'll come with one. So the first one is, if schools were judged like restaurants by how much customers actually enjoyed the experience, what would change overnight?
Oh, again, I think there would be a lot more creative lessons. I think there'd be a lot more freedom in teaching. Again, probably like back when I did my training, where we did have a lot more freedom in the way that we delivered lessons, just from my own experience. But yeah, I think there'd be a lot more input of interests of the young people and a lot more freedom in the way that subjects are taught.
Perfect. What is the most dangerous myth that educators tell themselves to avoid real change?
Oh God, that is such a tough one. Oh, I think that things have to be done in a certain way. I quite enjoy change. To me, the most consistent, opportunities that everything changes or something. I can't think of the exact quote now off the top of my head. But yeah, I think probably that things have to be done in a certain way, how they've always been. And that is definitely not true.
Yeah, agree with that. I could jump into that, but this is supposed to be the quick fire round, so I won't. I always find this really difficult because I want to say what I think on what you said. But if a 10-year-old asked you why they have to go to school, what would you actually say?
I would say because we need you to change the world for the betterment of all of us in the future. So you need to go to school so you can find your interests. We need to know all of your amazing ideas, and you might have an idea that somebody else hasn't thought of that will honestly go on and change the world. So we need you.
I love that. Because we've got a couple of minutes, I am going to dig into that one then. And I suppose my question there is, I think the implication there is that why do they have to go to school to do that? And so we're in a space now where, if you've listened to anything we've been very polite and kind and all this kind of stuff, and it's not about, but school is babysitting essentially, so that parents can work. So do they need to go to school to be able to do that stuff? So pushing back on that question, yes, I agree with you, to change the world, to do some crazy things, their ideas. I've written a book called The Ideas Guy. Like, I'm all over people coming up with their own ideas and finding their own stuff. But do they have to go to school to do it?
Lots of advantages of school. Obviously, it depends on the individual, to what suits them and the best educational route for them. But even just from speaking from my own experience as a parent, both my children are incredibly lucky that they absolutely adore going to school because they enjoy all the different aspects of it and the opportunities that it brings. So the social side of it, speaking to the friends, different workshops that come in that we might not be able to offer to them, having, different subject specialists, just meeting different people and the opportunities. I think schools are invaluable in that. I think they offer such an enriching environment. So yeah, I would say that they would need to, but again, it depends on the individual and what the best education route is for them. But speaking from personal experience, even just as a parent, I can see the joy that going to school brings to my own little learners.
Love that. So thank you for joining us on the podcast. We know that there's you're doing cool stuff and you're trying to make things cool for learners and trying to I'll highlight this as a finish, which is that I've heard you're talking about relating things to real world. So you're talking about we're moving around like particles. We are trying to talk about how this ties into Iron Man and Tony Stark, and like we're trying to relate this and make this relevant. That's the gold standard. Any good teacher who can make that relevant and make that learning sticky and make it engaging for learners, students going to achieve because they're going to want to. I think our favourite examples of teaching is when you walk into the dining room and they're still talking about what you were talking about, right? So it's the age old trope. But we are super pleased that you joined us. Again, I'll mention it again. All the links for Leonie's stuff will be in the show notes. And do connect in and find out about what she's doing, and grab a copy of the book, Make Your Own Rainbow, a colourful approach to all things STEAM. Leonie, thanks for joining us on the Edufuturists podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.